Excellent. So we'll just go around the table if it's okay with you, David, and introduce ourselves. Jules, I'm going to start with you, please.
Lovely. David, hi, good to see you. I'm Jules, Business Development Director here at Active Insight.
Excellent. John?
Yeah, morning, David. I'm John Argent, and I'm semi-retired, and I support the group from working with David in some of the thinking in the strategic direction. Nice to meet you.
Darren? Darren?
Hi, David. You know me already because we work together. So from Vola.
Okay, excellent. Roland?
Hi, David. I'm Roland. I'm the Managing Director for Lambton Services. We manage leisure services for the London Borough of Hounslow.
Excellent. Andy, was that a train going past?
I don't know what it is. So it's a hell of a noise. Yeah, morning, David. Obviously, we know each other, so good morning.
Brilliant. And David, obviously, I work with Active Insight, but I've pulled this together for the LATCO support, for the local authority training company support. So thank you so much for your time, and over to you. I think you can share your screen. If you can't, let me know and I'll give you permission.
Brilliant. No, thanks for the opportunity to speak as well, David. I appreciate it. So just for the ones of you that don't know me, I'm David Wadsworth, Managing Director of Cornerstone Design and Marketing. We're a full service marketing agency that have been operating, well, we're into our 18th year now, but actually been working within leisure for around 15 years. So today I'm really hoping to speak to you about a product that we launched earlier this year. It's been in development for a couple of years and hopefully brings quite an exciting sort of route to joining up customer journeys and disparate sort of CRMs and systems. So yeah, I'm going to try and share my screen up with you now, and we'll see if this, yeah, that's looking good actually, David. So
Good.
Do that now. He says confidently, it's always fun when you've got the. There we go.
Yeah, that's working.
Okay, so hopefully you can all see that. Yeah, brilliant. I just thought I'd give a little bit of background to Cornerstone as an agency and just how we got into leisure, really. And I won't dwell too long on this, but it just gives the ones of you that don't know us a little bit more insight. So like I mentioned, we're a marketing agency and we're classed as full service. So we've built the agency over 17, 18 years to a headcount of 35. And much of that growth has been through leisure. So since COVID, we worked with a lot of partners across the leisure sector, pretty much through referral and recommendation, all of which wanted us to drive commercials forward, look for cross-selling opportunities, build brand, build digital experiences and ecosystems. But my sort of experience goes back 15 years ago. So many of you will have probably known Oldham Community Leisure. And that's really where Cornerstone started. From the accent, you can probably tell from Oldham. And really, that's when we got brought into leisure, when we started to understand the systems that were out there, the different customer journeys that were there, and also the complexity of a lot of leisure trusts and operators with other systems being built around them. So we work across the country and we work across different regions. So we are an international agency, primarily international through business to business. Most of our leisure work is done nationally, and we work with challenger brands and those wanting to grow, evolve, and develop. So within the company, we've got creative teams, we've got digital and web teams. I'm a marketeer by trade, so the business really lives and breathes marketing. We've got public relations and we've got production. And much of that really has been built around the leisure model. So as we got passed from one leisure trust to another, we've really grown the agency to support and facilitate those needs that have come out of our clients' feedback, really. So that just gives you a very brief insight into us, and great obviously to have Andy and Darren on the call because you guys are current clients and past clients as well. So we've worked with a number of leisure operators. One of the things that kept coming out as we've worked with more and more leisure operators is that challenge around data. And me as a marketeer, I've had those issues as well about how we join up customer journeys. And that's really where I'm wanting to talk through today about the product that we've developed, which I'll go straight into now, if that's okay. But before I do, any questions about me or the agency before I delve into the product? Okay, excellent.
Just an observation, David. It's good that there's a bit of a one-stop shop in the range of services that you offer. So, which kind of ties, particularly from a marketing and branding point of view, together. Because obviously we're doing some work together now on the website and rebranding and so on. So, just to share that with colleagues, I think it's good that you're not just a one-trick pony. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thanks, Darren. And yeah, we've built a lot of our work around being completely consultative. So you've obviously experienced the UX workshop that we've done recently for the website. And with every client that we work with, because we're a strategic agency, everything is done with proper research and backing. So true insights from each of our clients, and then map out a journey that's relevant, or a plan that's relevant rather, for them. And that's really how Cornerstone Connect has been developed. It's been working with the industry and listening to a lot of the concerns, the challenges that people talk around boardroom tables and so on, and just trying to piece something together in a way. So I'll just give you the background as to where we came from with this product, and then where we're going to as well. So I bring leisure and culture into the mix because one of our more complex clients, which I've got a small case study, I won't name them, but you can probably join the dots up fairly easily. They've got probably about 7 or 8 key platforms that they've developed over the years that are third-party systems, but the customer's engaging with one central brand. So they're wanting to engage with the brand and the operator, not individual systems. The challenges that we see quite often is that we've all got more data now than we've ever had, but we've actually got very few resources or means to be able to compile that, centralize it, understand and interpret it in a timely enough fashion. So it's great that it's there, but the challenge we have as a marketing agency, and I've got data people, I've got cyber people in our company, but there's just so much of it that there's no way to really decipher it because they're all in different pockets. So what we've been looking at over the previous years is how can we pull together a lot of these disparate systems that exist, all fantastic in their own rights, but not able to necessarily speak to each other because they come from different sectors, different providers, and so on. And that's really the challenge that we've tried to overcome. Now, thankfully, in recent years, there's been a shift in mindset and mentality from a lot of providers to provide two-way APIs, and that's been music to our ears. It's something that we've worked with from e-commerce clients, international B2B clients for the entirety of the business, but leisure just had more challenges in making that a possibility. Whereas now, thankfully, a lot of those providers that are systems providers are delivering these two-way APIs, or at the very least, a single one-way API that we can extract data from. And that's been a game changer for us because for the first time ever, we've been able to pull together a centralized customer journey and a way to aggregate data and utilize it commercially from a marketing standpoint, from an operational standpoint. And I'll talk through how we're doing that and how we plan to evolve that in the future. So this example is very much Gladstone based, but this is the same for the likes of XN, for Legend, Perfect Gym, any sort of systems provider that's out there that offers a robust two-way API, this can work with. So the challenge that we've had for so many years is that we've always had these disparate systems sat around the core of a quality LMS. So the LMS is really the heartbeat of every operation. But a lot of these other angles and aspects sit around but have no way of communicating to one another. So with this example, you imagine a typical customer journey. You might have someone jumping on your website. They might submit a form that they're going to take register their interest, take a 3-day pass, whatever that might be. Now, historically, that sat in a website, it sat in an email inbox, it might have sat in a CRM system. but it'd have never actually sat within your LMS at that point. So understanding the registration and tracking of that customer, even at that early point, was a challenge. Then, if you think about migrating them through a brand journey rather than a systems journey, a brand journey. So, this is an example of one of our clients. I'll buy a beer for whoever guesses the client at the end of the call. But ultimately, we've got theatre systems that sit third party, we've got golf systems, hospitality, conferencing platforms. The reality is there's no commercial value in those systems integrating into the likes of Gladstone, XN, and so on, because there's not enough sort of capacity in terms of demand, I suppose, there. But we had that challenge that we wanted to create one refined customer journey. Then you look at things like GP referral systems that are critical to any leisure operator. And then we've got kit providers. So every one of these systems are doing brilliant things, but typically in isolation because of the disconnect between data, really. So we've tried to overcome that challenge and thankfully have overcome that challenge with the development of Cornerstone Connect, which is a software as a service platform that we've developed in-house here at Cornerstone. We've got a team of web developers and web application developers that have pulled this together, working closely with a few key providers over the last couple of years, key clients and advocates within the leisure sector. And we're now pushing this product live on a sort of national scale initially, and thankfully getting some real interest. And I'll talk through some of the use cases that this is bringing up. And if you do have any questions, I should say, just shout at any point if you do have any questions, anyone, as I run through this.
David.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. Just a quick one on this connection. It's something I've not thought about before, and obviously I've seen this a couple of times. But one issue that keeps cropping up with my Future Fit hat on
Yeah.
is that councils already have a learning management system, a learning platform, so they're a bit loath to have another one
Yeah.
to access the Future Fit. I'm assuming this could actually potentially give some sort of solution to that scenario.
Yeah, so with your learning management platforms, again, if they've got a two-way API, we can distribute content in or out of them as you see fit. The challenges comes with something called a SCORM file for learning management platforms, which is a specific, I won't bore you with the technicalities of it, but getting that into the LMS can quite often be a challenge. But yeah, ultimately, if there's a robust two-way API to a system, it can be fed in dead easily. And we can also adapt things as well. So if there were challenges of how that needed to be pushed into them, we can actually do some work within Cornerstone Connect to convert and translate that into a more sort of system-ready format for them too.
Fantastic. I think, yeah, I'll take that away and speak to Future Fit. I think it sounds good. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks, Andy.
David, sorry, one from me. Just more of an observation, really. It's interesting that there's no sort of CX in this or MPS or anything. And one of the I suppose recent challenges we've had is looking at an operator's ecosystem. You know, someone says, well, we've already got this platform for comms, you know, how can we make this fit and work?
Yeah.
And our message is always very much, well, our platforms are to gather that insight that we can use to drive the CX. It's not a communication tool. So this obviously seems to bridge all of those gaps in one place.
Yeah, 100%. Sort of with that customer experience angle that you're looking at, one of the key things that we wanted to do is put the power of preference data within the customer's hands. We've got so many brilliant systems. So you think of apps that we're currently using, you think of the LMSs, but again, one of our GDPR challenges is that if you're in an app and you opt out of text or email, how the hell are you going to find that in the LMS, in our email automation system, in your retention management? You know, there's so many things to it. So what we've actually built is a central preference data center, which then, so long as the sort of applications we're connecting into will pass and accept that data both ways, we can allow them to manage preference data and we can also manage that. So no matter where the customer's engaging within that journey, we can be 100% robust in the way that we're managing preferences. And we can also allow the customer then to choose frequency as well. So we can set up algorithms that say that if me as a customer, I only want to know about golf through the summer, I only want to know about swims during the winter, whatever that might be, I can then manage that as a customer. And then during the summer, I know that there's no reason for me to be brought into Group X, for instance, because if I'm outdoors, let me stay there. And it's the first time that's been possible, really. So, from an operational standpoint, it gives a lot of power. And from a marketeer's standpoint, it's the most excited I've been about the sort of leisure as an opportunity because we can do more cross-selling, upselling, and sort of personalization than ever before with this.
It's absolutely vital, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to get carried away, so I'll let you carry on, and then we come back in with some more. Thanks.
Oh, that's fine. That's the excitement that I want to see, to be honest with you. So I very appreciate it. So yeah, I guess just to give you a bit of a feel for how this now works, and the thing that I've been very clear about across the industry is that Cornerstone Connect is there as a data aggregator and a complementary product. So we're not moving into the industry saying, "Oh, we're trying to build an LMS or an app or anything like that," because those systems exist and they're brilliant in their own right. What we're really trying to do is be a facilitator of that data one way or another to and empower those apps to be even better, I guess, and to drive more value to the end user. So in this scenario here, you'll see that the way we've modeled this is that Gladstone is still there as a key part of data capture. And the idea within this model is that anyone that registers in any area of this overall ecosystem would be pushed into Gladstone. So, for instance, at the minute, if someone did come through the website of a leisure operator, they will now be registered in the LMS as a prospect. And I know that's a really simple thing, but it's something that's not been there in the past with a lot of these. So, being able to track that journey to start with is vital. Now, if you then imagine things like golf systems, theatre, hospitality, that data could also be passed back in if the data sets were available within the LMS. So that's a possibility where we can pass that there. But what Cornerstone Connect allows us to do is send triggers into each of the different systems to say, okay, this user is using stuff over here. It looks like they're dormant here, but actually they're an active customer. So don't start a retention journey that's not actually needed because they're engaged with the brand. It's just this part of the overall that they're not engaged with. And then we've got the ability, like I say, to use preference data to drive how they want to be communicated with. So app providers, typically, if most people are pushing through the app, why not use push notifications there? But similarly, if a customer wants text or email, we can give them that capability at that same point. And this then gives the ability to bring other systems in. So Andy mentioned there about Future Fit and the LMS, and we've looked at training courses for rehab and prehab programs. The drop-off rates on some of the rehabs can be quite significant, whereas a lot of the training and development is there. So with this, we could actually bolt together apps, training programs, referral schemes, and automate a lot of those touch points to keep people engaged and positively affect health outcomes realistically. That's really only just scratching the surface. So we are developing AI features and functionality for this, which would then give you the ability as an operator to interrogate your whole data set in one central location. So if you're trying to figure out how many golf members go into the gym during the summer as opposed to the winter, you can just feed that into AI at that point. Now, this is still early stages for us, so we've not launched it as a product, but it's definitely coming. But we can even tie into things like your Apple Watches, your Garmin's, Strava, anything with an API, we can build in there, so long as the customer provides that opt-in that we're able to digest and share their data across the overall network. We've got integrations to Power BI as well, because a lot of our sort of council-driven operators will use Power BI internally. So that's in there so that you can start to digest and pull a lot of that data. I'm pleased to say a few of the kit providers are quite nicely on the way with integrating into us as well. So the idea there is that we could register their own apps for a lot of their automation and on-kit experience, and do that directly from the LMS as well. So there's loads and loads of opportunities, and I suppose that the reality is that anything can be integrated into this and your wider data set so long as it's got a two-way API. So that's a brief intro. Before I go into some more of the depth of this, are there any questions at this point? Okay.
David, sorry, can I just it's always a comment of my conversation is, have you had conversations with the other organizations that sort of start aggregating this data, such as moving communities, for example? Because there's some stuff here that moving communities doesn't do, but ultimately could do. And maybe together there's an opportunity here. Certainly some of if you've already managed to get, Garmin and Apple to integrate so that I can see the activity of my, and it's not my consumer, but they're a member with me, but they're also a runner, a cyclist, etc. And we can start seeing all of the physical activity of the customers that have come through our leisure management system. There's a really interesting opportunity here for the sector and place-based working.
That was going to be my question, Dave. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
David, I'm currently chair of Moving Communities, so I'm really interested to see how data can be aggregated and pulled together on that. So I think it's a great question, Dave.
Yeah, and from my perspective, we've not had that conversation yet, but would be really happy to do so, because there's just so much out there in leisure. So we've tackled all of the initial needs that clients have spoke to us about. But absolutely, John, if that's something that we could pick up separately, love to speak to you more and see what we can integrate in. Brilliant. And Roland, you've got your hand up.
Yes, David. I mean, is this? I guess it's connected to the comments that David and John have made with the data. What role does? I mean, it gathers a lot of data, which I think is quite vital and useful. What role does Gladstone play in terms of the data piece?
So from our perspective, we'll pull Gladstone data and push back anything that their system will accept. So the two-way API is really robust, and we've been really impressed with them as an organization, actually, in terms of responsiveness, because their APIs are quite new. So we just ultimately exchange data. But from our perspective, we could hold and manage that data for you centrally. We've got actually integrations into NHS as well. So our GDPR people are an NHS specialist IT organisation to make sure that that's held in the right manner for you centrally as well. But from the LMS provider's standpoint, their remit won't necessarily change. But what we are seeing really valuable is that when we're speaking to them about emerging trends and so on, we can actually build some of the functions and systems that they might not have within their pipeline. So if they're saying that it's going to take 2 or 3 years to build something out, if they're happy for us to, we'll build it. And we've had those conversations with Gladstone. So for instance, we're currently nicely on the way to building a paddle sort of booking platform, which prevents the age-old thing of one person having to book and then get payments off 3 other random participants. We can do it all centrally and manage that holding section for e-com and payments and so on. So yeah, it gives us quite a lot of opportunity on that, just working with these as partners.
The reason why I ask is because sometimes to extrapolate or extract data from systems can be quite clunky. I know my business insight team and data team struggle to get data out of the existing systems.
Roland, we're struggling to hear you, mate. Struggling to hear you.
Sorry, hold on. Let me put my headset. Maybe I put a headset on.
Well, that sounds perfect now.
It's way better. I think what I picked up on there is that your data and insights teams are struggling to pull data out of those systems and analyze it. Is that right?
Yes. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
So I think the point I was making was my data and insight team struggle to get data. I mean, Gladstone is everybody knows who Gladstone is, quite a big CRM provider. And for me, I think what we struggle with is getting the data. And I don't want to have to employ a whole bunch of people just to get this sort of valuable data that we need.
Yeah.
Now, we are going to open procurement, and it may be still Gladstone that gets the contract. Well, our Gladstone contract has ended, and we're looking for new suppliers. If we get new suppliers, how does that change what you're presenting?
It depends on the provider. So some of them are well on the way with API development, and others are probably a little bit behind the curve, I'd say. So we could always consult and support you with those insights. The key thing to ask is, have they got a robust two-way RESTful API? And if they have, that's absolutely fine. So we can integrate into any. Now, the beauty of what you've just mentioned there in terms of the reporting is that one of our clients has got a Power BI set up at the minute where they can pretty much automate a lot of those general reports. So Gladstone's really free with its data and will allow us to pull what we want out of it. So if you imagine you could start to pull out of all of these systems, so long as they enabled that interaction, and just build that into a monthly automated or a weekly automated, even a daily, and that'll just digest the data for you.
Fine.
And then
Okay.
the future goal, like I'd mentioned earlier, is to use AI to do a lot of that. So you can go in and have those sort of commercial questions, operational questions, peak usages, peak demographics of users at certain times, and it'll just go off and mine that data across all elements of the system.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely fantastic. I think one of the reasons why we have Power BI is so that we can use that to get the report, because there are other systems that you would use that you just press a button and reports comes out. And Power BI is quite expensive, and the reason why I raise it is you could face that challenge when you speak to other providers, because the license of Power BI is not cheap. And there are people who want simpler systems that can just go and press a button, the report comes out.
Yeah.
So you just want to think about that there could be other suppliers besides Gladstone out there.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And one of the things that I'm trying to make sure that I'm not breaking any NDAs here, but so I'll carefully word this. But one of the things that we're building out for one of our existing clients is a dedicated portal that will report on what metrics they need to report on,
Okay.
just in an easy to see dashboard. But we'll always work with our clients to understand, is there a better platform out there? So we can build pretty much anything, but sometimes the cost and the
It's the
commercial
cost, yeah. You have to pay for
can
it.
be
Yeah.
ridiculous. So in that instance, we'd work with you to say, what's the general cost of Power BI? Could we build that out in a more cost efficient manner? What we're also doing with a lot of our clients now, where they come into us with niche requirements and needs, we'll build it as a project fee. But we've also got that agreement that if we start to resell that to the industry and there's adequate demand there, we'll rebate that initial fee so that then they'll never be out of pocket. So if it becomes a commercialized product, we're using a fair approach to the way that we operate.
Thanks, David.
No problem. Okay. Any other questions from anyone before I move on? Okay, superb. So I guess what this allows you to do is map out all the individual customer journeys that Jules kind of mentioned a little bit earlier on there, that we can do a lot with customer sort of overlaps and cross-selling and so on. We can really personalize every aspect of that. So even your email comms going out every week can be much more personalized around preference data. So each of us could, in theory, receive the exact same email, but actually the titles, the content pieces are all tailored to our individual interests. And that could be pulling content from other applications, other channels, just to make sure that we're getting the most out of all the digital assets that we've got around the organization. Preference data we've talked about, but that's where it all starts. So it's absolutely key. And then ultimately powering everything with one data handler to push and pull data as you see fit. So to your point, Roland, if you're on Power BI now and in 2 years' time you find a better system that works more for you, the beauty of this is that you just disconnect system A and plug into system B. So your data is still sat there in the same manner, ready to be digested however you want it. So there's none of that painful transition to, another provider with different data sets. That's also one of the valuable things about the way that we've built Cornerstone Connect, is that we'll map the data in a very compliant best practice way. So even if your separate systems aren't in the most compliant manner, say it's a bit of a legacy system that's just never been updated, as long as we can pull the data in, we can push that out in any format for you then, and we can merge it with other data sets as well along the way. So it's quite an interesting product to work on for us. And really, we're wanting to make sure that every journey is perfectly seamless. So like I mentioned earlier, whether it's email, whether it's apps, whether it's, even in-store digital signage, we've done some tests actually, because we've got our own digital signage platform as well. So we've done it based on when someone actually checks in, it flashes up messages that are relevant to their journey. So we've got it at the office where we tried it, and it welcomes us based on geolocation. Not saying that'll work in a leisure setting, it absolutely won't. That's just us playing around. But there's certain things then that we can do in terms of timing messaging in centre. So if you imagine the kids swimming lessons where it's typically parents and grandparents, we could then be promoting theatre family days out on the digital signage as people walk in automatically, and not needing to worry about, oh, right, is the right message up at the right time and so on. So there's a lot of scope, and we're constantly developing and evolving this. And generally, by improving that overall customer journey, we're hoping that it helps with your core goals, which is a healthier population. Simple as that. So if we keep people more engaged for longer, more aligned with the brand, those social impacts and outcomes should be significantly improved, with things like referral schemes sort of completing more and more. And like I say, it's just scratching the surface. There's so much opportunity that sits out there now. And I just wanted to give you a feel to give you a bit of context as to what customer journeys can or should look like. So I picked out some of the best in class in terms of, customer personalization and data. I'm going to pick on Amazon. And this is just to give you a feel for probably showcasing. I'm speaking from my own business and team's perspective here, how simple our automations are in comparison to the ones that are doing it properly. So this slide here is a typical example of an Amazon automation. And the reason that I'm showing you this, I know it's completely illegible on the screen, but it just shows you how much depth and data is involved in Amazon. And I love pulling on Amazon as an example, because you'll all probably remember when it first launched, they were selling books and DVDs. That was it. And Jeff Bezos's absolute infatuation with listening to customers and understanding what they needed and wanted built the beast that it is today. So when you look at a lot of the preference data sat behind this, you can start to digest and dissect how we're being served, what we're being served, and how that product's being built around us. And that's the key shift here. It's customer centricity rather than that siloed way of working per system. And that's the really exciting bit, in my opinion. So what that currently looks like for us, I've really oversimplified this, so I'm not trying to be patronizing at all. But for a lot of our automations, we might have these individual silos, inductions, welcomes, did you know, trying to cross sell a little bit, but trying not to overlap too much with other systems that are operating in their own silos. So it's not an ideal or perfect world, that. But what we can now do is start to make these much more fluid and dynamic. So you imagine your perfect customer journey, and it can typically be replicated so long as all the data sets are in place and the preference data is triggering. And I'm not saying that's an easy piece of work. You all know how much data sits behind what you guys do, but getting that right from the outset, and we do a lot of data mapping workshops with clients to understand how that should be set up. But this means that any of those key journeys, from referral, lapsed, cancellations, upsells, they can all be automated. But again, remembering that if you've got an automation in your LMS or a separate retention platform, that's absolutely fine. We keep that there. We understand when that's triggering, and we just build it into this broader journey so that we're utilising each system to its highest capacity. I think I've probably talked around a lot of these, so I'm not going to bore you with reading off a slide, but it just means that there's so much more opportunity for us to drive ROI, deeper insights into data, and positively impact that health outcome. So I wanted to give you an example of where it started, this, and you've all seen timetables, we've all done them, and we've redeveloped hundreds, if not thousands, over the years. But this is one that we did for Be Well Wigan, probably about a year or so ago. At first glance, it looks fairly basic because there's nothing that special about timetables, being perfectly honest with you. But I just wanted to talk through a few of the key aspects that we were now able to pull in. So working with these guys to set up proper data sets, it meant that we were able to do all the usual filtering that you can see going on screen here. But because the way that the data's filtered, we can show things in real time for a start, because it's on a two-way API and it's robust now. We can showcase availability and pull that in real time so that people aren't being presented classes and then you've got the issues with double bookings and things turning up, people turning up when they shouldn't be turning up, and so on. And then moving on to the next screen here, you can just kind of see where we're able now, because of the API connections that are in place. Historically, we used to pull a piece of data, it sat there for 24 hours, and then we'd literally do the same again day in, day out and replace it. But everything's much more dynamic now. So with this, for instance, you can see that our system's interpreting the data based on the time. It's removing the book now facility. We're able to deep link in. I mean, why on earth we were never able to just send someone from a timetable straight into an activity to book there and then? Who knows? But that's now available, and that's great that the APIs are there. And you've also got the ability to use things like additional information that sits in your system. So clicking on these little information arrows, we can bring that up and pull any data that you want out of there. The exciting thing with Connect, though, is that we can amalgamate this with anything that you want. So if you wanted to show these timetables alongside golf, football, theatre, hospitality, whatever you want, that can all be done literally within an API integration at that point. So I know that timetables are fairly basic, but I just wanted to talk through even some of the possibilities that we've got with some of the core stuff that you'd expect to. And last but not least, I guess, just to mention about cybersecurity. This is an absolute critical part of any system development. And everything that we do is around what's classed as a NIST framework. So basically, it ensures all data is encrypted in transit. It makes sure that there's loads of anti-tampering in there. We built the system on a Google Cloud network, and it's behind enterprise level firewalls and CDNs, content distribution networks. So basically, it's best in class. It's the same things that Google and Gmail are running off. And it is highly, highly robust from a security standpoint. We've got separate pen tests that are delivered as and where clients require them, just to prove that that is as secure as we say it is. And like I say, from a GDPR standpoint, we've got someone that's far better with GDPR and legislation and detail than me, working on all of those for each individual client, just because the agreements that have to be in place for that overall flow. So in terms of benefits, I can share this after, so there's no issue with me sending this across. But there's general efficiencies across the organisation that you'll see on all systems. There's a whole host of operational benefits that has really been one of the key drivers from a client standpoint for us. And there's that scalability to that as well. Then we'd like to say that there's plenty of commercial benefits. If we keep people engaged and active for longer, that should hopefully generate further revenue, whilst also delivering on social impact. And from a customer's perspective, they're actually engaging with one brand, in one central ecosystem and not several different journeys at any one point. And as a marketeer, I've been completely selfish. Cornerstone Connect is pretty much just to make marketing far easier for me and my team, but it just has all these additional benefits around it, which is quite nice. So Yeah, that's pretty much it from me. I'd just like to thank you, obviously, for taking the time out of your Friday morning, especially such a hot, nice one. I see Andy's enjoying the outdoors there. But yeah, happy to take any questions if you've got any.
Brilliant. David, thank you so much. Andy, thank you for introducing us to David. I think that was incredibly valuable. I've got a shed load of stuff that I want to talk to you about, and I'm sure others have too. So I'm going to let them go first. Anybody got any questions, anything they'd like to know from David before, well, probably Jules takes over and then I follow up.
I just to say thank you, David. It's fascinating, interesting, and really valuable. And I think the opportunity to simplify and add depth at the same time, those things are kind of often opposites, aren't they? But I can see that this allows you across multi-platforms and multi-facilities and services to bring together information that's helpful for the back of house. So, the guys understanding what's happening and why, but also, if not more importantly, for the consumers. So it's really interesting. So I haven't got any questions. A couple were asked during the presentation, but thank you very much. Very interesting.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. Appreciate the comments.
David, John, I've just sent you both an email to introduce yourselves to each other so you can have a chat around that moving communities opportunity. And John, as always, we're happy to get involved in those conversations as well.
Sure.
Darren?
Thanks, David. David, just on the AI side of things, in terms of customer interaction, that customer service aspect,
Yeah.
answering queries, sell, retention, that kind of stuff. Where are you with that aspect?
So we've got our own chatbots in place, but we're also open to using third parties as well. So again, we're not tied to anyone. So that side of things is working particularly well. From an AI standpoint, in terms of data mining, I'd say we're probably 12 to 24 months off having anything that's truly robust, being perfectly honest with you. We've got a lot of tests going on, but you've also got to manage the way that that data is being interpreted and where it's being shared as well. So we've got a few different AI bots that we're using at the minute, but just checking which way that works for us and if it's going to work. So we've got a couple of clients that we're wanting to launch early next year with, not this year because of all the other developments going on. And then if they're generally happy with that, that'll then start to become probably a slow release from that point onwards.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
David, I've got a couple. You mentioned paddle, which is interesting because the major supplier of that paddle booking at the minute, there's a few questions being asked around who owns the data.
Okay.
So that's my question to you. Who owns the data? And how do you do this on personal information? How do you connect an individual? Where does that sit? Because it's always been one of our challenges when we've worked with the APIs, for example, moving communities cannot pull the personal data out of the leisure management system. So how are you doing that, and how are you managing the GDPR around ownership of the data and protection of that personal information?
Honest answer is with great difficulty, David. So this is why we commissioned a GDPR expert from the NHS to do it for us. So the GDPR angle is a massive challenge. There's no doubt about that. In terms of data ownership, the data is still the client's data, in our opinion. So we're definitely not the sort of organisation that would hold people to ransom over data. It's there and it can be exported anywhere. So those agreements are all in place on the projects that we are working on at this moment in time. In terms of the individual member, it's a massive challenge and it varies from pretty much one LMS provider to the other. So what we've done within Cornerstone Connect is try to pull a load of different unique identifiers. Because obviously, if you're in an LMS, you're typically using membership number and email, aren't you? I think, but then someone signs up with another email and another email, and we've got loads of duplication. So what we're then trying to do is where we've got different systems pulling in, we've just got an algorithm and a hierarchy that's going through. So it's starting with exactly that membership number, email, do these tally up, then looking for duplications in name and postcode, and then drilling down to that. So it's still not 100% perfect. I'd probably hazard a guess that we'll probably still have 20% variance in quality of data there. But we're just trying to work as much as we can to eliminate all of those nuances across systems. And I guess from one system we might have 100% success, probably not, but let's say that's our dream. But then, depending on how many other systems you're integrating and the quality of that data, it could reduce significantly. But we just run those tests and work with clients. There's still, even though this is an aggregator, there's still a lot of consultation that goes on with every client to understand the way the data works, because we're even seeing it. You can have a client with Gladstone both set up in essence the same way, but a totally different way of utilizing it. So it's got to be personalized to the organization and then drill down into the data after that.
Okay. What would be the absolute game changer, David, is you talk to your NHS expert and actually we run it on NHS number, not on membership number or name. And that would change the entire aspect of what we're trying to do here.
Well, that's brilliant actually insight, because we've not looked at NHS number, but we are actually working with them for EMIS integrations to make sure that then any trust can just bolt into it realistically. Again, that sounds dead simple. Those of you that have tried it or know it, there's a lot of work involved in that as well. But yeah, that would be brilliant, absolutely brilliant if we could do that.
Okay. Excellent. Right. Anybody else? Jules, do you want to throw anything in? I think you probably do. Yes, I can tell by that smile.
It made me laugh. I was reaching to unmute myself, and you're like, before Jules says anything, guys. So yeah, again, just to echo, thanks, David. I mean, that was just, I mean, I'm just here going, this is an absolute no-brainer, isn't it? And takes away so much friction for operators. You know, when I'm out speaking with people and about all the conflicts with ecosystems and the integrity of data and what to do with it. So I don't really have any questions at this point, other than, well, telling you stuff you already know, in the sense that there's so many opportunities here. And I think where I'd really like to take this conversation with you is two ways. One, how we can support through a customer experience perspective. So we have a number of platforms from acquisition all the way to the point where somebody might look to leave, and how that can feed in and inform behavior and action, of course. And then the other side is around our consumer insight panel. So where you've got, one of my questions was going to be around upsell and can you signpost, and yeah, we've released some data around secretary spend, which I shared with this group a while ago. And again, it's how can operators use that? And obviously this is one of those ways in which we can actually drive and signpost. So yeah, probably a separate conversation, but it was brilliant. So thank you ever so much for taking us through that.
No problem. Thanks for the feedback.
Anything anybody wants to add?
I think the only thing for me, both Davids, is the digital futures and UK Active, and again, just making sure. I mean, David's representing GM Active for us at the next meeting for digital futures, but I think just like we were talking at the very outset of collaboration and you know, avoiding the sort of people's front of Judea approach and stuff like that, of just making sure that we work this through UK Active and Dave Garish and all that, and take that, because I'm so excited about what this is providing potentially for all sorts of applications like we just talked about. So I think it's just making sure that we get that coordinated approach really with this. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely, Andy. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording.